Hey listeners, Chris Godey here with some bonus business insight before we jump into today's episode. If you're looking for the right place to host your next business gathering, conference, or event, look no further than Orlando, Florida. It's no coincidence that Maxwell Leadership hosts our biannual International Maxwell Conference in Orlando. Between its many luxurious hotels, meeting spaces, and venues, Orlando is the perfect place for you and your team to gather, collaborate, and grow. Whether you're traveling for business or bringing your company for a meeting, there's a reason Orlando is as much a business capital as an entertainment one. And let's not forget the delicious cuisine at one of the 46 Michelin-rated restaurants where your team can kick off your evenings. So before you plan your next business event, check out Orlando, where the possibilities for business travel are unbelievably real.
Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results. Hi, I'm Perry Holly, a Maxwell Leadership facilitator and coach.
And I'm Chris Godey, Executive Vice President with Maxwell Leadership. Welcome and thank you for joining. We're going to dive into a two-part series, and this is something
At least a two-part series.
At least, right. Perry was giving me some directive communication right before we went to record, so we might be changing this up a little bit. But what I love about this is that this came directly from, again, somebody in the field. You dove in, you helped develop some content around it, and we have a new course now that you were behind in leading through change.
Good deal.
And so we're gonna break this up into two different parts. What I love about it is it's very practical. We've seen, you and I both, if you've done any research and reading on change, you got different diagrams, you got different, all of that is great. We want to give you some practical thoughts and approach to leading through change, because there's lots of challenges that come with that. So before we dive in, though, I want to encourage you to go to maxwellleadership.com/podcast. There, if you'll select this podcast, you'll go down, you'll see a form at the bottom. Maybe your organization's going through some change. Maybe as a leader, you're going through a little bit of change. And if we can help you at all, if you have a thought, if you have a question, fill out that form, let us know, and we'll get back in touch with you. So, Perry, I know this has been something, I know last year and last quarter of last year, you're kind of working through all of that. Talk to us a little bit about what stirred you up to bring this to our listeners.
Yeah, well, the client did ask, and we had some things I'd done on change, but it was, like you said, a little more theoretical and how to think about change. I thought when I was talking to Liz, our contact there, she said, our leaders just practically need to know how to lead a change effort. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's a really, one of my specialties for me personally is how can I simplify this for me? And it really made it easier for the team as well.
And it helped you with some podcast
It helped me with some podcast content now. Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about that. One of the starting places, always, our great leader, John Maxwell, and say, how does John say about change? And really kind of the start of today, I took the quote I'd seen him say that he said, there are three things that make a successful leader: vision, an unwillingness to accept status quo, and influence. And I was struck by that, is that we always talk influence a lot, but, I think we could almost subtitle today's podcast as developing an unwillingness to accept status quo.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Man, yes, we could have absolutely titled that. Change is important. There's, I don't know who to attribute this to. I've heard several different sources, but the quote is that, if you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance a whole lot less. That's really stuck with me, because I will sometimes get into a groove and into a rut and sometimes become, complacent. And I'm like, where is that change? Like, so that you don't become irrelevant. We work with one organization. This is an interesting dynamic. It's a challenging dynamic, but I'll tell you this much. They understand change and innovation, and they live and breathe by this, and they change leadership roles every 2 years.
Wow.
And you don't stay in the same role. And so for 2 years, you go at it, and you're trying to put your mark on that role. and you see a massive amount of change. But leaders need to understand that you need to be change agents. There is a need for change. And at the end of the day, you talked about this unwillingness to accept status quo. I've also heard this said that, man, this is just being so curious that you always want to find a better way to do something. Now, there's some of that can become a pain in leaders that feel that way. But one thing's for sure, you'll always see, a change movement, a change management with those that always think something can get a little bit better.
Hey, John Maxwell here. I'm in the studio. We've been recording all day. And I was thinking about really one of my very favorite experiences that we have, and that is called Day to Grow. If you want to grow in every area of your life. I tell people all the time, you don't want to go to something, you want to grow to something. But if you're passionate about personal growth, development, your team, and growing them, you do not want to miss Day to Grow. I'm going to have some real players with me. Deion Sanders, Jamie Kern-Lima, myself. Oh my gosh, you don't want to miss it. So mark it, come and see us on Day to Grow. I will promise you this, you come and bring your team, and at the end of the day, you'll come up and shake my hand and say, one of the best days I've ever invested in for myself and for my team. I'll see you there.
Well, I heard John say, and he was talking to a group, and he was trying to be funny. I wasn't sure at first because I took Latin. Everybody else was taking Spanish in high school. I took Latin, and most of the people that know me now say, "How's that working out for you?"
Yeah.
So, not so good. But John said that status quo was Latin for the mess we are in. And I thought, I know he's being funny, but actually it's funny, but not funny. It really is. If you can get that in your mind, that if you're okay with status quo, then you're okay with the mess you're in. So all leaders need to be change agents. Mm-hmm. I think if forget John was sitting here, said two things leaders need to do. They need to create more leaders, and they need to drive change. Because if you're sitting on status quo, you're in the mess that you're in, and you're going to have a problem. Everything else is changing. And if you're not, you're going to be the problem. Yeah. So I thought we would talk through maybe just today briefly a skill set of becoming that change leader. I did tap some of my research of some guys I really follow a lot and like what they say, but Dr. Jack Zinger and Dr. Joe Folkman and their research, but they got me thinking about, can you develop the skills set of a change leader? And you absolutely better be seeing yourself as a leader of change. A change agent is usually the phrase that's used, but I'll just start and I'm going to get your feedback on some of that. But one that they said, number one, was that you encourage innovation, that that there is probably a better way to do things. And I know, John, you were fortunate to be in the room. I had to listen to the recording. This is something I want to speak to you about later. But that at the Exchange event last year, that John was talking about innovation that requires that we challenge the preconceived beliefs, biases, and assumptions that are around us, that we have to challenge these preconceived beliefs, biases, and assumptions that are around us. Yeah. You were in the room. What's your thought about?
Yeah, I think that the talk one that he did on innovation was awesome. And I think that what I learned more from John in that talk and just watching how he goes about change in his life is that there is not something that we don't look at where he thinks there's an opportunity in it. No. Like there are opportunities everywhere. And I think as leaders or even in organizations, I think what we got to be careful of is, the growth curves, right? Like when it begins to hit that plateau, like you better have already been thinking about what's the new opportunity, what's the new change for the organization before it begins to make the downhill. For those of you that are watching, I'm moving, and those that are listening, you can't see me moving. But that growth curve, once it starts to plateau, you should already have a change in place to redirect and rechange that growth curve. And it really starts with having a mindset of looking for opportunities inside your business. Don't get so diversified that you're not really focused on what your specialty is. But there are definitely opportunities in there. And I think in order for us, I love this, you put this in my notes, I love this, there's a big difference between being innovative and supporting innovation by others. And we want to, as leaders, be on the innovation side. We want to be how do we innovate on what we're doing? How do we look for new opportunities? So that's what I'd say around encourage innovation. Number 2 that we have here is move quickly. Increase change effectiveness by moving quickly. This right here, when I was going through my notes, I was like, ooh, I could do a much better job at this.
I think we all could, yeah.
Because I think I decide to make a change, but then I kind of drag it on, right? And then I end up getting myself in a little bit of I'm moving too slow. The team's not as excited about it. There's they're resistant to it. There's pain versus doing it quickly.
You said something a minute ago about the curve and the process, how things kind of play out over time. And if you're not changing, finding the next thing, you could be disrupted. And so the idea is, can you disrupt yourself? And they call it jumping the curve. I was studying this for this class, but you think of somebody thinking through Kodak was an example I use. I have a family member that works at Kodak, and I thought, are they still in business? Because they had a chance that they own the market on something. They could see the change. The curve was starting to decline on film. There's new technologies on the horizon, and they decided they wanted to protect their film empire. And instead, somebody else, I think Fuji, came in with digital photography and disrupted them and took the market. What was fascinating to me, and I did look in the story of Kodak, was they already had the technology. They had it from like the 70s. They invented digital technology, but they protected that. It's a very uncomfortable place when you have something that's working, but you want to go start something new. Yeah. And this area of discomfort is what keeps us between those two curves, opens the door for someone else too. So when you say moving quickly, is when I see it, I can't wait because others aren't waiting.
No,
and so
right.
if I need to see it, and I love you added that little piece there about I don't have to be the only innovative one here. I can call on the innovation of my team, which says, is a team looking at you to be the change agent, or could you actually coach change agent thinking to your team? They're on the front lines. What are they seeing?
Yeah.
What's the mess we're in? Status quo. How can we update, change, grow? Is it incremental improvement, or is it a whole new thing? Do we have to innovate to jump the curve in what we're doing in our business? So to me, this idea of you better be looking at it and be moving quickly, even if it disrupts you, because somebody else is
doing it,
and they'll come and get you.
And it's getting faster and faster.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Number 3, maintaining a strategic perspective as a change agent. That all change that you're looking at needs to tie back to organizational strategy. You can't just be changing for the sake of changing. Hey, here's something we could do, and just making stuff up. Is it bringing us closer to what we're trying to accomplish, what the organization is trying to accomplish, and that we can get caught up in all the change, we forget why we're doing it. And I'm going to tell you in the class, what we're finding is part of the model that I put into this class was selling change to the team. And if you don't have a why about why we're doing the change, we're just doing it because we think we need the change. No, it's because it ties to our organizational strategic imperatives, our organizational strategy. And if they believe that, much more likely to buy into what you're doing. But it's like, why are we changing? Everything's just fine. And we've got some clients we've had this past year that said, hey, life is good. We're making money, moving great. And now they're finding themselves, oops, it changed. Yeah, and we didn't. So,
Yeah, I think I love what you said about the why. Remember, people receive communication in either the why or the how language. And as you communicate this change, you need to be able to communicate it both to the why and the how. You may not know all of the how as you go through that, but man, to Perry's point, you better understand and know the why and relate that to the people as you're rolling this out. Well, number 4, I love this one, external perspective, big picture thinking that accounts for how the world is changing. That's what when I said just a minute ago, man, it's getting faster and faster, right? I mean, technology, everything that's going on in the world is moving faster and faster. And so what are the trends? What is happening in your market? What's happening in your industry? And then how does that affect, one of the things I was thinking about is how does that then affect the customer journey that your customer has inside your organization? And you need to be able to adjust there as well. And so what is going on? How do you make those adjustments? But you don't know that unless you begin to focus a little bit on the outside at times and have that external perspective versus just having the internal perspective of what you're doing inside the organization.
Well, I think about, you mentioned it earlier about even this content. We're listening, trying to keep an eye on the perspective. What are our customers dealing with? What are they struggling with? How can we change? We could just stay with our cooking and just do what we do, but no, we're changing to meet demands of the market and demands of our clients. And we got to be thinking all the time out in front about what's next and where does it go. Number 5 was what Jack Zinger and Joe Folkman called the balancing the push and pull. And the push, the deadlines and the timelines and all the hard part of leading a change effort, making sure that the deliverables are put in and really leading the team and moving people toward completion of the project. The pull is more the inspiration and the motivation, the encouragement, the driving up the energy of the team, keeping an eye on why we're moving forward, people remaining inspired about what we're trying to accomplish. You get into the dog days of a change effort, and people begin to pull back. Maybe you get tired, maybe lose energy, and so the push. Got to have all those deliverables. The pull, you need to never stop as a change agent, being the inspiring, motivating leader that drives up energy around why we're doing it and what we can expect to come out of us doing this effort.
You have to, as leaders, buy into the change, okay? Because if you don't, your team's going to know it right away, right? And they're just going to kind of go along with it as excited as you get about it. And so I love you talk about creating the energy and the inspiration around that. As we wrap up, I want to share a thought that our CEO, Mark Cole, shared in a leadership meeting with us around change that kind of ties into exactly what Perry has brought us here. This, by the way, this is just a sneak peek of an entire course that Perry's created around change. And if you're interested in that, you can go to maxwellleadership.com/podcast, go to this lesson, click on the lesson, and there's a form there. Let us know. We would love to help you and your team with it. But as we were working through some change here at Maxwell Leadership, Mark Cole, our CEO, said, hey, there's really 3 types of people in that help with change. And I think it goes in line with this first part of what we're talking about here. He said, you have your change resistors, which they're just like, nope, not do that. By the way, you're going to have those on your team. You may be that at times as well. We're going to have our change empathizers. These are dangerous because they're like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't know why they're making that. You're empathizing with other people that don't agree with the change, and that could be dangerous. But then you have, and we've used this a couple times just in this session, the change agents. And we want a team of change agents. And in order to do that, what Perry's brought to us in these 5 points right here really will kind of lead you to be able to lead people to become change agents.
One of the lessons in the class is, can you coach change agent thinking to your team? So that's another nice, follow-on. Maybe we'll do that in another episode for sure. Well, thanks for the insights, Chris, and thank you all. If you, like Chris said, if you want to learn more about our offerings, learn about our podcast family, if you want to leave a comment or a question, you can do all that at maxwellleadership.com/podcast. We love hearing from you. Very grateful you'd spend this time with us. That's all today from the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast.